Hello everybody, I'm Dan. Welcome to my Java and Raspberry Pi programming tutorial series. The order in which my tutorials are organized on both my website at pijava.com and my YouTube playlist is designed to maximize learning by building on concepts from prior tutorials. This tutorial is making the Land Cruiser remote control. I'll be using Pi server, and this particular one's for the iPhone client. My last video was on the Android client, so if you've got an Android, go ahead and look at my last video. Otherwise, this one's for the iPhone. So this is part one. First thing I'm going to do is pull up my web browser to my website, pijava.com, and select Pi Programming. I'm going to scroll down here to the remote control part one for the iPhone. Okay, so in this tutorial, I'm going to lay the foundation for the remote control portion of the Land Cruiser project. I'll be creating an RC server Java program that will be running on the Raspberry Pi. I'll also create an iPhone client that will connect to the RC server socket to control the steering. Now, at a bare minimum, you will need to have completed the following tutorials because I'll be using concepts, classes, and source code from each one of them. The JNI, C++, and pigpio steering one, I'll be using the steering class there. ServerSocket and socket, you'll need to understand what those are, and ServerSocket and socket part one, I'll be using a lot of the source code from both the client and the server on that. Okay. Also, I made this little link up here, click for Android, and I modified my other tutorial where it'll say Android and click for iPhone. So if you're in the wrong one, you can select that there. So you will need an iPhone, preferably with the ability to become a Wi-Fi access point, in other words, a hotspot. Furthermore, you will need to have Xcode installed as well as the ability to run apps through the USB Lightning cable. The iPhone code for this tutorial is written in Swift 3, which will probably become obsolete shortly. Now, I will do my best to keep the source code up to date on my pijava.com website. But I did really keep it simple. I didn't do any error trapping or anything like that, just because, you know, as a matter of fact, I'll come down here and show you the this one class called RC Client. And this is the socket communications there. I think this is going to be pretty good to go for the next version of Swift there. If anything, these two statements right here might change in the future there on that. But I kept it all really, really simple, no error handling, so that hopefully, you know, when Swift 4 comes out, it won't break it like the huge transition from 2.3 to 3.0. Well, really screwed up quite a few of my apps there and required kind of an undertaking on getting them all fixed and transitioned over. It's a little perfect storm. I don't know, I'm going off on a tangent, but man, I mean, you had iOS 10, Xcode 8, and Swift 3 all in one, and it was just like, wow, okay. That's one of the reasons why I really love Java is because, you know, Java, they'll deprecate, you know, old methods, old classes, stuff like that, but, you know, I've never been burned by actually them removing past functionality, so they'll just deprecate a method or something like that, add in a new one, and so. But anyway, enough of my ranting on that. Don't get me wrong, I really like iPhone programming too. It's just sometimes Apple gets a little frustrating that way. So let's go ahead and talk about the Wi-Fi connection. So there are a couple ways we can set up the Wi-Fi connection between the Raspberry Pi and the iPhone. We can set the Raspberry Pi as the hotspot and have the iPhone connect to the Raspberry Pi. This option requires some software installation and a bunch of configuration changes, well, plus a little luck. Oh, and there is the issue that we will lose our internet connectivity on both the iPhone and the Pi because the Pi will not be connected to the internet. Now, at some point later on, we'll set up the Pi as the hotspot, but that will take an entire tutorial in itself. So for now, I'll keep it simple and just set up the iPhone device as the hotspot and connect the Raspberry Pi to it. I will connect an Ethernet cable to the Pi and remote desktop into it. From there, I will connect the Wi-Fi to the iPhone and get the IP address of the Pi. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is just pull up my webcam here. Okay. So, take a drink of my tea here. Okay, so what I've got here, I've got my Raspberry Pi up there. You can see this orange thing down here. That's my phone battery bank with the 2.1 amp output, 5 volt, and that is powering the Raspberry Pi, so we're not connected into the AC at all. The Ethernet cable here, right, is plugged into that, and I've got an IP address so I can remote into the Raspberry Pi itself there. And that IP address, I'll just go ahead and pull up the Raspberry Pi right here. 10.0.0.226. I'm just going to open up terminal here and type in ifconfig. Okay. This ETH0 is the Ethernet connection. You can see my IP address is 10.0.0.226. Okay, now down here on the wireless LAN 0, I actually connected up to my iPhone 6S Plus, and I've got it running as a hotspot. And you can come over here and see that I'm on Daniel's 6S Plus. So the IP address that I got for that is 172.20.10.2. And you want to make sure that when you connect to your iPhone's wireless hotspot, you might as well just like pause the video and do that right now and get your IP address, because you will need to know that. I don't know what this thing is doing over here. Let's just get off that. You will need to know that IP address so you can plug that into the iPhone program there, okay? Because this thing is going to be running as the server. And let's go ahead and just we'll just exit on that. And I'm going to pull up. I've already got the website open here, so we can come down here to the RC server class, which is very similar to my SocketNet Part 1 server class there. Okay, so we want to change directories to Java and change directories to the LAN cruiser folder. And I'm just going to do a dir. So this is all of our steering stuff, and if you watch my steering video, you should have completed it by now, because we're going to create a steering object here too as well. Okay, let's go ahead and do a leaf pad. And we'll call this rcserver.java, name of our source code file there. And we'll just come over here and we'll just paste all this source code in here. All right, so my center is going to be 1400, my right max, and my left max. These are just values that I came up with after trial and error, because the steering servo, we're sending basically like pulse width milliseconds here across to the, you remember that from my steering thing, but 1130 is about 1.1 something or other milliseconds, and 1670 is about just under 1.7 milliseconds on the pulse width. But using GPIO pin 23. And then here I'm creating a steering reference variable of type steering, right? And then in the constructor here, I'm setting that steering reference variable equal to a new steering object. And here is where the constructor is invoked there, and I've got an RC server reference variable of type RC server, right? Okay, all pretty straightforward here. So from the socket part 1 there, I was just basically sending number equals, and we were determining whether it was prime, composite, or not a valid number there. So now I'm going to be setting PW angle equals, and this particular string literal is 8 characters long. And so let's come down here, and actually before I do that, so if it contains PW angle, it will go ahead and invoke the turn method, right? The turn method there is basically replaces my prime method from the other thing there. It's all pretty much the same there. I'm taking everything after the 8th character there and turning that into I, right? And then I'm checking to make sure it's within the steering right maximum and steering left. We don't want to send a value that could cause the servo to try to go further than we want to and like break the linkage, So, and then I'm invoking the Java native method there, turn wheels, on GPIO pin 23, and then that value, right? Which of course causes the pigpio library to go ahead and write that low level to the create the pulse width and write that out. So over pin 23. All right, let's go ahead and compile this here. Save the changes. Yes, we're going to do Java C RC server. Okay, now we'll need super user privileges, so we'll do super user do sudo and Java and -d, because we need to tell it where this particular library is located here, right, which is the current directory, because it's going to use that for when it creates a steering class. So java.library.path equals, and of course dot is the current directory, and we're going to fire up the RC server, invoke the RC server class. Okay, so we're listening on port 4141. So pretty much just minimize that, move this into kind of a smaller window over here, and I'll just kind of minimize that too. All right, don't need that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to connect over to my Mac, and I'm just using basically Chrome Remote Desktop here. And so open up Xcode, and I've already got it open here. We're going to create a new project here, and it's going to be a single view application. right? And I'm just going to call this the same thing as I did for the Android app. So RC Land Cruiser, next, and create. Okay. It's going to fill a little bit of this initial stuff in. Cruiser, build one. I don't want landscape at all. I just want portrait. Device is universal. That's fine. I don't really much care whether you use an iPhone or an iPad or anything like that. Most likely be an iPhone since you'll need to set it up as a hotspot. Okay. All right, I think we're good to go now. First things first, let's come over here to the main storyboard. And actually, you know what? Let's come up here. Let's right-click on this folder, select New File. And this is going to be a Swift file. And we're going to call this one RC Client. Okay. All right. I have got my website already pulled up here in Safari, pyjava.com, right? And so we're going to scroll down to the bottom section down here for the class RC Client. Okay. We're just going to copy and paste all of this stuff here. So let's go copy. And while I've got it in this kind of large view here, let's go over just a few of the things here. So that really wants to move around fast there. All right. Creating two variables, output and input stream. That's pretty much the same from the Android thing there. So we're going to be writing through the output stream and reading through the input stream. Although in this particular class, I'm not going to be reading anything at all because I just want to keep this simple because once again, you know, Swift 3, who knows what it's going to break in Swift 4. So on the init, which is the same thing as a constructor for those of you that are watching this and are unfamiliar with that, right? I'm going to be taking in the IP address and the port here, okay? And then I am using the stream class to invoke get streams to host, okay? And that'll open up that address and the port, and then it will also set up any input to come in through our input stream variable here, and any output stream to come in through our reference output stream variable here. Then I will invoke the open method on both input and output, and I will write SYN, which will cause the synchronize to go on the server there, okay? Now I've got the write method here. The write method takes in a string and adds a new line. You need this new line added to it so that the server will actually say, oh, okay, I got an actual message and reply that. So that's actually critical there. Don't worry about this stuff there. I'm just basically setting this data to, you know, using the string class, invoking the data and changing that to the UTF-8 encoding there. Okay, and then write bytes will basically be an integer, and data with unsafe bytes, I'm going to be using the output stream, right? And I'm going to be writing to it. And the syntax here is strange, and that's why I'm like going, okay, they might change this in the next one there. But data, of course, is now our byte stream there at that point in time. So anyway, moving on, we're just going to write that, or display print to the right there, so we can actually see what's going on in the console window there. And then the close-up function there is simply going to write fin, which is final, which will cause the server to write back final act, but I'm not going to read that in, and we're just going to close both the input and the output stream. Turn here is very similar to, so I've got this reference variable called old pw, which will be an integer. And I'm passing in an integer value. So if it's equal to, if old pw and pw are equal to each other, it'll just go ahead and return. We don't want to send a whole bunch of the same commands over and over again. Sometimes it does that as we're moving our finger across the slider bar there. So otherwise I'll set old pw value equal to pw, so the next time through it won't print it. Okay, and then we'll write pw angle equals, and then plus the pw there. Okay, so that's pretty much how the client program works there. So let's come over here and we'll just go ahead and paste that in there. Okay. All right, now we're ready for our main storyboard. We're just going to add a few simple things to this here. Let's come down over here and add a what I want to do, I want to just move this over just a little bit, just resize my stuff so it'll be a little bit better when I pull up all my windows and stuff. Okay, so text field, I'm just going to come like right over there. Oh, what am I doing? I don't want a text field, I want a label. I want a label, okay. That's good enough there. Let's set our properties on this. I'm just going to have this be angle, maybe like 20 on the font there. Let's come down here. Let's horizontally center this in the container. And let's uncheck constraints to margins. And I'm just going to set that top constraint there. And then we'll just hit our little refresh thing. Okay. All right, now underneath that, I'm going to add my slider bar. So we'll come over here to the slider, and I'll just put that right there. All right, we are going to, we'll just use this exclusively here. I'm going to, 34 is fine up there. I actually want this to be like, 20. 20 on this one and 20 on that one, okay? And we'll add those 3 constraints. Okay, that looks good. We'll just do a refresh on that. Now the minimum value on this is going to be 1130. Okay, unlike Android, we can set a minimum value here in iOS. So there's no point in doing extra math on that. So 1130 and 1670 and 1400 is going to be our settings on this here. Okay, so our minimum 1130, our maximum, I say 1670, and our value will be 1400. Okay. All right, that pretty much takes care of the sliders settings. Let's come here and add a start button and a stop button, and then I think we'll pretty much be done with anything I want to add on there. Okay. Button. Okay, and this will be start. I think I want a much larger. Let's just change this to like 24. How's that? And let's see. I want this to be horizontally center, and then we're going to 43 is good to me. Yep. And let's refresh that. There's our start button. All right, underneath that, we'll drop in another button for stop. And I'll just set the constraints first, horizontal, and we'll do our top constraint. That's good there. All right, and this one will be stop. Okay. All right, that looks good there. Okay, now let's come over here to the view controller. I'm just going to get rid of this and just make things really simple. Take out any silly comments. And let's come back to the main storyboard, and then we'll just do our little split thing right up here. Okay, and let's drag this over here. Come on. All right, well, we'll just move this. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to come up here and give this just a little bit of spacing. And this one here, I'm going to hold down the control key, drag this over, and I'm just going to call this one LBL angle. And make our connection there. Whoops, I took out the override. Okay, LBL angle, button start, button start. That's the outlets links that I need there. And override. Okay, and let's do control this one. Button start, we'll connect that. And let's do a control on this, and let's create our next outlet. Button stop. Okay. All right, the next thing I'm going to do is come here to the slider, hit Control, drag this down over here, and this one's going to be an action. And I'm just going to call this, I think I just called it slider. Let me just double check there real quick. Yeah, I just called it slider. All right. Let's connect that. All right, and so sender, we don't want any. We actually want this to be part of the UI slider class, okay? And then let's give just a little spacing. Let's do our start button here. btn start. This isn't going to be an outlet, it's going to be an action. All right, and then let's do just another little bit of spacing and then our stop. Okay, drag this over here. Call this one btn stop. And this one will be an action as well. Okay, and we'll connect that. All right, now we're ready to go ahead and fill in the code from there, right? We want this reference variable RC client here. I'm going to put that right above the view did load, and we'll paste that in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the button stop, set that to enabled is false, and in the view load there, so we can't click on the stop right away. Since I don't have any real error trapping in there, that could cause a nil point, a nil exception there. So we're just going to have that enabled. And then let's put our slider stuff in there. And paste. Now there is a good reason why I'm not actually, copying and pasting this whole entire thing with these IB action things here. It's really easy to associate your links between the outlets, but actions, I just haven't been able to do that there. If I remove a link to an IB action and start it back up, it just doesn't seem like I can get it linked back up properly there. So that's the reason why I'm taking the extra time to just cut and paste all of the stuff into here. So we're about to change that IP address here too as well. All right, let's copy that and paste. Okay. See all these little dots? They're all blacked out, so we know we got all of our links set up properly and we're good to go there. I'm going to go ahead and take out of or disconnect the split screen there, come back over to the view controller, and we want to change this IP address here to the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. And let me go in and get that because I've already forgotten what it was there. Open up another window, ifconfig, and that is this 172.20.10.2. Okay. One 172.20.10.2. Let me just make double sure on that. I don't want it to pop open, and then 20.10.2. Excellent. All right, so now I'm going to kind of configure my windows here. There we go. That looks pretty good there, so we can see the Raspberry Pi on that, and we can do this. All right, I'm going to go ahead and come up here and select my Success Plus, which is currently connected into that, and I'm going to go ahead and just run this here. And that will start that up on my phone. Oh, you know what I want to do? I want to do the same thing I did over in Android, and I want this storyboard to have kind of not the launch screen, the main storyboard. I want the main storyboard to have let's see here. I want the background to be just black, and then this here will change its color to white. Okay, that way it doesn't look like I'm shining a flashlight into the camera when I'm pulling this up here. Maybe I'll just make it just a little bit even dimmer there. I like green. We'll kind of do a green on that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and rerun that here. All right, while I'm doing that, excuse me. Okay, so I have this running on my iPhone now. I'm going to go ahead and unplug it here, and I'm going to move my camera around just a little bit here. All right, readjust this. There we go. All right. So here's the iPhone app. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know what I'm going to do? I want to make this a little smaller over here. We don't really need that anymore, but we do need this here, okay? So we'll go ahead and that looks about good there. So we'll be able to see what's going on in the Raspberry Pi window over here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and click on Start. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and start dragging this from left to right. Okay, so I'm right-handed here, so I'm going to go ahead and, you know what I'll do? There we go. Let's make this just a little bit larger. Tension on that thing is just okay. So as you can see, maybe right about there would be good. Keep getting that light from the, and of course you can see the values go over there, and it's very responsive. So if we just really start going crazy on this, right, it's really holding its own. So it's really happy with how all that's worked out there. So anyway, so I'll just go ahead and put it back to about the center there. It kind of stops buzzing at me over there. And then when we click stop over here, right, you can see it did closing socket, right? Send the final acknowledgement. Now one thing I did on the iPhone app that I didn't do on the Android app is I made the start button available again. So if we wanted to, so of course now if we drag this or whatnot there, nothing's going to happen. So now we can enable the start, and you can see over here, right, I got the synchronize and the synchronize acknowledge there, right? And so we can start this back up. On the Android app, I was just kind of, it's building it out, right? Obviously this app is a little primitive, quite ugly. It's going to be looking a lot better, you know, later on down the road there. So, but yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and stop that. And now that closed the socket, and we're listening on port 4141 again. That pretty much does it for this tutorial. I don't really have anything else other than to add to that, other than you know, basically stay tuned for my next tutorials where I'll be showing you guys how to use the electronic speed controller to control the actual motor. Go ahead and get rid of that, and thanks for watching.